disinformation can change whole political regimes or whole, like, direct whole policies. I think Brexit is a very good example of when it has happened, where so many of the core messages that were driving this Brexit and driving the change were false. So there we clearly can see that it's possible. The question, I guess, what should have been done to prevent that from happening, and would it have been possible? I was very critical towards Russian state, of course, already before the war and while working as a journalist and countering disinformation. It wasn't like a full surprise for me about what happened. I have been very, very disappointed by the Russian people. Yes, there are some individuals who have either fled the country or continue living there and opposing the war. But the majority of Russian people who do support the war, either passively or actively, that's unimaginable and that's unacceptable. Like, that's something that you can't forgive easily. So I think that I definitely, my view did change towards the Russian culture and seeing the things that drive that society into this kind of aggression and war and accepting that war. I think what has been interesting is this metaphor of frogs that are in a water that is heated more and more and more, and finally, like, they never understand that now it would be time to jump away. And I think that has been somehow visible quite clearly in Russian society. Like, even the opposition, even the critics, like, the barrier, what is accepted, what they take, what they tolerate, is all the time getting higher and higher and higher and higher. One example, I was surprised by that. It's when there was an investigation that Dmitry Bykov, the Russian poet, was one of the targets that was tried to be poisoned. And one of the Navalny's, opposition politician Alexei Navalny's supporters tweeted that it's kind of understandable that someone like Navalny they would want to poison Navalny, but that they go even after poets like Bykov. How is that possible? And for me, as an outsider reading that kind of notion on Russia's development, I think that was quite like telling of the overall atmosphere. You know, when even the opposition is already on the mindset that of course it's okay, like of course they try to poison our Navalny, but how can they, like, where the red line go is all the time moving and shifting. Well, disinformation uses a lot of emotions. It's the basis of disinformation is to provoke some really, really strong emotions. So normally it would be anger or fear among different target audiences in different societies. Fear and anger can be provoked in different ways. In some countries, for example, messages around sexual minorities, LGBT, would be very provocative and would provoke a lot of maybe fear as well as anger. In some other societies that might not work as well, but quite often also the topics are somehow very similar, so there is a grain of truth inside it. So some kind of truth is binding it together, and then manipulated content is sort of put around it. It is the same principles that are there, no matter which which regime is doing it. Is it Lenin's? Is it Stalin's? Is it Hitler's? Is it Putin? And those main principles are there all the time, what Russia is doing now, and partly what China is doing as well. And one of the principles is that if you just, it doesn't matter how ridiculous is the lie, but if you repeat that enough many times, then in the end you will achieve a result. Well, the Western states are vulnerable to disinformation and misinformation, probably mainly because they are democracies. If there is a hostile actor that is specifically like moving in this grey area, which is not illegal, which is not immediately punishable or criminal. It's grey area where it's sort of allowed, and they can use a lot of these manipulative tactics exactly because of the openness of democracies. But then I do also think that democracies are much more resilient to disinformation in general compared to authoritarian or totalitarian regimes and societies. I do think that what's positive is that these media literacy programs, when you start from a very young age, like from kindergarten, to teach kids how to treat information critically, what kind of sources to use, and educate them. I think that is working, and it's proven that it's working. So that can be replicated in many countries where it's not really happening yet. So there's a lot that can be done in the future. Light in the tunnel when it comes to Russia, I'm not sure if I see that, because I think that for this level of propaganda and manipulation that the people are under, I don't know what would need to happen for them to like completely change their worldview. That would probably require Russia to be defeated first, and then start that work of Russians themselves figuring out what kind of country and people they want to be.